social ease of a penguin who'd stumbled into the lion enclosure, much like every other Englishman she knew. Frances wasn't the principal, that was Miss Vanderbilt, who had been correcting the girls' tea-drinking technique since before colour television. But Frances had wanted to be involved from the start. She was eager to pass on some of the mysteries of modern life that her own finishing school had failed to explain, like how to extricate yourself from a blind date or make an instant supper from 5 eggs and a kipper. Though Frances always said that she pitched in for the sake of the family business, she loved her mornings at the academy, particularly the giggling atmosphere that 15 or so teenage girls carried round like their clouds of perfume. The Tallimores had one child, a son, Hector, and Frances would have dearly loved a daughter, but to her great sorrow, the Honourable Hector was her lot. She was pragmatic, though, and Frances's silver lining now was to be a sort of wise aunt who could offer some proper advice to the rich but neglected teenagers who were sent to Full Moon Street for finishing off. Some of them, she thought sadly, were barely started. There was a knock on the door, and Kathleen appeared as she always did at 9 o'clock. Frances noted that she wasn't bearing the usual tray of morning coffee, but was clutching a box of marmalade. Behind her, bobbing up and down nervously, was Nancy. From the anxious way she kept glancing into the box, Frances assumed, with a sinking heart, that either Harrod's delivery system had broken down badly, or else one of the girls had let her cat have kittens again. Kathleen seemed flustered, chewing her lip and flushing pink to the roots of her jet-black hair.
"Sorry to interrupt, but I think you ought to see this, Lady Frances. Found it on the doorstep."
Kathleen placed the box on her desk, and Frances found herself looking into the round, blue eyes of the most beautiful baby she had ever seen. She knew at once she was a little girl, just a few days old, the pink mouth curled up at the edges, and her eyes were thickly fringed with pale golden lashes. Before Frances knew what she was doing, she had lifted the baby out of the box and was cradling the warm weight in her arms, marvelling at the peach-down softness of her pearly skin. The baby didn't make a sound, but gazed up with serious eyes, the colour of navy-blue school shirts. Frances's own eyes brimmed with tears, and her heart flooded with a fierce protective yearning. The baby was dressed in a clean cotton romper suit and wrapped in a pashmina, with her fragile fingers opening and closing like sea anemones. Her feet were, Frances was relieved to see, covered with pink cashmere socks, and from her heavy contentedness, she'd obviously just been fed.
"Hello,"
she murmured, stroking the porcelain cheek with the back of her finger, taking care not to graze her with her diamond rings.
"Where's your mummy, darling?"
Frances cupped a tiny foot in her hand and squeezed, transfixed, as the baby sent invisible tentacles of love into her heart, wrapping round so tightly she could hardly breathe.
"We've called the police,"
wailed Nancy. She flapped across the room and hovered over the box like a mother hen in support tights.
"But it's dreadful, poor wee mite. Just that blanket in this weather with those filthy pigeons everywhere. I don't know what sort of irresponsible—"
"It's good cashmere, that scarf, and there was a note," said Kathleen, more matter-of-fact. "Whoever left her isn't coming back, if you ask me." But Frances was only half listening. The scarf had fallen back to reveal a fine covering of red-gold hair, curling around the baby's delicate ears, and by then she was absolutely lost. This tiny, vulnerable scrap needed her, and she wasn't going to let her down. Not like whoever had left her there, helpless and alone on the doorstep of a strange house. Kathleen was speaking again. "Tried to find Lord Tallimore, but the man at his club says he's not there. I gave a message to telephone at his earliest opportunity." Nancy stepped forward to take the baby from her arms, but Frances turned slightly, unwilling to break the spell. "Pelham's busy this morning," she said. Kathleen and Nancy exchanged a look. Frances knew they knew exactly where Pelham was, trying to find Hector. They'd been part of her family for too long not to read between the lines. When it came to Hector, the lines were drawn pretty far apart, just to fit everything in. Even Frances had to admit that Hector was getting to be the sort of junior cad she warned the girls to avoid at all costs. Handsome, charming, utterly irresponsible, and not to be trusted in moonlit gardens. It didn't help that some of